It happened in the kitchen, the same kitchen where birthday candles used to drip onto cupcakes and Sunday morning pancakes smelled like comfort. But tonight, it was a battlefield. No warning, no mercy, just one cracked rib, a broken glass, and a mother who didn't even bother to look up. If you've ever been hurt in your own home and told you were the problem, you'll want to stay with me, because this isn't just a story. It's one of those revenge stories that don't start with rage, but with silence. I had only gone downstairs for a glass of water. The air was still, heavy, like it knew what was about to happen. My bare feet touched the cold kitchen tile. The fridge hummed, a low sound in an otherwise quiet house, until she appeared. Jenna. She stood across from me in that worn t-shirt she always stole from exes. Hair messy, eyes wild. Her fists were clenched, her face blotched red, like it always got before a storm. "I told you not to touch my things," she snapped, voice cracking through the silence. I blinked. "I didn't," I said quietly, holding up the glass in my hand. "I don't even go in your room." But the words didn't matter. They never did. She shoved a chair aside so hard it slammed against the wall. And before I could move, her elbow drove into my ribs, hard, fast, direct. Something inside me gave, the sound, God, I'll never forget that sound, like twigs snapping under weight. My knees buckled, I dropped the glass, it shattered. I tried to gasp, but it felt like my lungs folded in on themselves. "Mom!" I screamed. "She hurt me! Something's wrong! I can't!" From the living room, a voice floated back. Lazy. Bored. "Oh, honey, not again. Not again." I clutched my side, falling against the counter, blinking through the blur of pain. I expected her to come running, to see my face, to check if I was breathing, but Mum didn't even stand up. Instead, she sighed, and muttered, "She didn't mean it. Don't be dramatic." Popcorn crumbs fell off her lap as she brushed them away, more concerned about the mess on her sweatpants than the daughter who couldn't stand upright. "And don't even think about calling the cops," she added. "It'll go on her record. Jenna's still applying for jobs." I stared down the hallway. Did she just say that out loud? I was 23, working part-time, studying online, hustling to claw my way out of that house brick by brick. Jenna was 26, jobless, volatile, and apparently above the law, and Mom had just said, "Don't call the cops." I couldn't breathe right. Every inhale was cut in half by stabbing heat crawling up my spine. I slid down the cabinets until I was sitting on the floor, forehead pressed against my knees, trying not to cry too loud. That night, I lay in bed with an arm wrapped around my side, trying to hold myself together, literally. I had no insurance. They cut me off at 18 because, quote, "If you're an adult, act like one." I didn't have savings either. Every cent I earned mysteriously disappeared into house expenses, which usually meant Jenna's new lashes or whatever girls' weekend Mum suddenly had. I held my phone in one hand, thought about calling for help, but who? Dad wouldn't pick up. Jenna once told my friends I faked depression to get attention. They stopped texting after that. I wasn't just physically broken, I was socially erased. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of orange juice. Jenna was already in the kitchen, humming some trashy pop song and scrolling through her phone. She didn't flinch when she saw me limp in. In fact, she smirked. "You always bruise like a peach," she said, sipping from the carton I bought. I stood there, hand clutching the counter to stay upright. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, anything, but I didn't because I had learned something more dangerous than yelling. I had learned to plan. Jenna had always been like this. She told my ex-boyfriend I cheated so she could have him. She took birthday money out of my cards and claimed it was just a loan. She once got caught shoplifting and told the cops I dared her to do it. But this time she crossed the wrong line, because now she had something to lose. A job interview at a major publishing firm, a future she pretended she was working so hard for. And me? I had something better. Proof. So I limped into the bathroom, locked the door, and lifted my shirt. The bruising was deep, ugly, already yellowing at the edges, purple red in the centre. I took photos, recorded a voice memo of my shallow breathing, scanned the swelling, even filmed myself wincing as I tried to move. Then I played back Mum's words from the night before. Don't call the cops. It'll ruin her job hunt. I backed everything up. Photos, voice memos, medical notes. I sent copies to myself, to a second email account I barely used, to the cloud. I didn't know exactly what I'd do with it yet. But something inside me had cracked with that rib. I wasn't going to protect them anymore. They had spent years painting Jenna as the misunderstood one who just needed patience. And me, the burden, the drama queen, the overreactor. But this time, I was done playing the role they cast me in. 3 days passed. I didn't speak to Jenna. I didn't sit at the dinner table. I didn't even flinch when Mum tossed her usual sarcastic jabs, because the whole time I was watching, waiting, and building the kind of revenge story that doesn't explode but unravels, thread by thread. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I shifted, my rib reminded me, a sharp stab, a breath I couldn't quite catch. It felt like my own body didn't want me there anymore, just like the people living under the same roof. I lay on my side, curled in, one arm across my stomach, trying to keep the pain from spreading. My phone rested on the pillow beside me like a lifeline I couldn't use. I opened and closed the emergency dial screen at least 5 times. I didn't press call, not because I didn't need help, but because I knew I wouldn't be believed. Not by them, not even by anyone else. When you grow up being told you're sensitive, you always make a big deal. Or, it's not that bad. You start to wonder if maybe they're right. But that night, I knew they weren't. They were just tired of dealing with me. Not because I was broken, but because I refused to stay silent anymore. And still, some part of me hoped that maybe, just maybe, someone in that house would check on me. But the door stayed closed. Around 2 a.m, I sat up, slowly, painfully, and opened the notes app on my phone. I started listing every moment, not just from tonight, from every year that led up to it. The time Jenna told my best friend I was cheating, just so she could test if she'd pick sides. When Mum used the rent money I gave her to buy Jenna a $500 birthday dinner. The weekend I missed a scholarship deadline because Mum needed help with something, and that something turned out to be driving Jenna to a nail appointment. The Thanksgiving when I got my first freelance check and Dad said, "Don't brag, you didn't do anything real yet." It wasn't a pity list, it was evidence, emotional receipts. If you're watching this and you've ever had to keep a list like that, not to stay angry, but just to stay sane, drop a comment below. Just say, "Listening, I read everyone, and I swear I see you." The next morning, I woke up to laughter. Laughter. My sister was sitting at the kitchen island, drinking orange juice I paid for, scrolling her phone, humming to herself like nothing had happened. My body hurt too much to get angry, so I stood there, arms folded, jaw tight, watching her smile like she didn't crack a bone in me less than 12 hours ago. "You always bruise like a peach," she said with a grin. "Maybe eat more protein or something." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have words, but because I had already spoken every version of the truth, and none of it ever changed anything. So I walked out. But I was thinking, and when I think, I don't forget. I walked 2 blocks to the corner urgent care clinic. Every step sent fire up my side, but I pushed through, checked in, waited, sat next to a man with a bandaged hand and a mother with a coughing toddler. The doctor barely looked up from his tablet when he asked what happened. "I fell," I said. He looked at the bruising and the swelling and paused, just for a second. "You sure?" he asked gently. I nodded, because what could I say? My sister elbowed me in the ribs after accusing me of touching something I didn't, and my mum told me not to call the cops because it might mess up her resume. Yeah, that would go over well. Still, he marked it down. Fractured rib. He handed me a copy of the report. I held it like a shield. Proof. One less person who could call me dramatic. I paid the bill with a borrowed credit card. Mine was maxed out from years of family emergencies, which, funny enough, only ever seemed to benefit one person in this house. When I came home, Mom was sitting on the couch watching TV. She didn't look at me, just said, "Don't start anything. Jenna has a big interview tomorrow. She needs to focus. Focus? She broke my rib. And somehow I was the distraction. That moment right there, it flipped something inside me, something I didn't even know how to switch. I didn't cry, I didn't yell. I went upstairs, I locked my door, and I opened my laptop. I opened the folder of photos I took the night before. Bruising, swelling, the video of my laboured breathing. I renamed the files, backed them up to 3 drives, emailed them to a trusted friend, printed copies and hid them in my sketchbook. Then I replayed the voice clip I had of Mom saying, "Don't call the cops, it'll ruin her job hunt." The hypocrisy soaked every syllable. They said I was dramatic. But I had receipts now, I had facts, and they had no idea what was coming. They had spent years calling me sensitive, too much, too soft, too emotional. But now I was something else entirely. Now I was quiet. And quiet girls with proof? We don't ask for justice anymore. We build it ourselves. I stopped talking to them, not in a loud, door-slamming, "You'll regret this" kind of way. No, I just stopped. I didn't sit at the dinner table. Didn't answer when Mom yelled my name to do chores Jenna skipped. Didn't flinch when she made her daily jabs. Still sulking? Or, "Don't bring your drama to Jenna's interview day." I didn't give her anything. And they had no idea that silence was the beginning of the end. It's strange how quickly a toxic household adjusts to ignoring you. They didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't mention the bandages. Didn't offer help with the medical bill or even a ride back from urgent care. It's like they were committed to the version of me they had always needed me to be. Dramatic, overreacting, emotionally unstable. Because if they admitted I was right, just once, it would unravel everything they'd built. I had been the scapegoat my entire life, the one who could handle it, the one they could blame when the power bill went unpaid, when Dad's mood turned sour, when Jenna lashed out. I was always the lightning rod for the storms they didn't want to face. But not anymore. That week, I planned everything in silence. I printed extra copies of my medical report and slid them into books I knew no one would touch. I sorted receipts, bank transfers showing borrowed money from my account, Venmo payments I never approved, groceries that magically became nail appointments. I created a timeline, a digital folder, labelled everything. Every photo of a bruise, every clip of them gaslighting me, every note where I wrote, "I'm scared in my own home." I even took pictures of the house, not because I wanted memories, but because I needed records. My name wasn't just on the lease, it was on the deed. See, what they didn't know, what they never asked, was that Grandpa had left the house to me years ago. He never trusted my mom with anything. Maybe he saw something in her that I didn't want to believe as a child. But when I turned 18, I got a letter from the lawyer handling his estate. It said, "This is for when they make you feel like nothing belongs to you." At the time, I didn't understand. Now I understood perfectly. I went back to my room and opened Jenna's old laptop. She'd left it open on the dining table the night before, bragging about her big interview with a downtown publishing firm. "They want someone authentic," she'd said, sipping wine from a glass I bought, wearing a necklace Grandma left to me in her will. The one Mom insisted Jenna deserved because she'd wear it more. Her resume was still open. I didn't touch anything, but I looked. One of her listed references was a former professor, Ms. Carmichael, the same woman Jenna had publicly cursed out on Twitter 2 years ago for giving her a failing grade. There were still screenshots online if you knew where to look. And I did. I took photos of the screen, documented everything. Then I sat down on my own laptop and opened a new email to HR department. Subject applicant concern, Jenna Ellison. I didn't use anonymous names. I didn't make threats. I didn't even call it revenge. I told the truth. I wrote, "You may want to reconsider this candidate." Attached are documents and audio files relevant to her behaviour, including a recent violent incident in which she fractured my rib. There is a voice clip of my mother, Marla Ellison, discouraging me from calling the police to protect her record. If this is the kind of person you believe represents your values, that's your choice. I just thought you deserved to know. I attached the evidence, then I hit send. I didn't hear anything back at first, but I didn't need to, because I'd already done the one thing they feared most. I broke the narrative. I wasn't the one screaming anymore, I was the one documenting, and that made me dangerous. The night before her interview, Jenna was all smiles. She straightened her hair in the hallway mirror, humming like a Disney villain. Mom kept reminding her to speak with confidence and wear the necklace. It makes you look polished. I stayed silent in my room, listening through the wall. I already knew what was coming. And I won't lie, part of me felt cruel. Part of me wanted to tell her, to warn her, to give her the chance to at least be honest, maybe even apologize. But the bigger part of me remembered every time I cried into my pillow while she bragged about stealing my boyfriend. Every time she laughed when I got blamed for her mess. She didn't need a warning. She needed a reckoning. The next morning, Jenna left the house glowing, fresh blazer, stolen necklace, fake smile. And when she came back, she wasn't glowing anymore. She looked like melted plastic, because the truth had finally made it into the room before she did. Jenna left the house that morning like nothing could touch her. Hair sleek, lips lined, blazer ironed, and Grandma's necklace, my necklace, shining on her neck like some twisted crown. Mum waved from the front porch like she was sending royalty off to the palace. "She's got this," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "She deserves it." And I just watched from the window, not a word, not a flinch, because when you've been made invisible your whole life, you learn to move in silence. And silent doesn't mean powerless, not anymore. She came back 3 hours later, no offer letter, no celebration, just silence. The kind that crept into the house and settled like fog. I was upstairs, sketching with one arm carefully resting over my fractured rib, when I heard the front door slam. Then a pause. Then a crash, something heavy hitting the floor. A purse, a shoe. Then her voice. "Someone sabotaged me!" It wasn't a scream. It was a howl. A rage layered in confusion, shame, disbelief. The sound of someone realizing the world wasn't playing by their script anymore. I stepped into the hallway just as Mom rushed to her. "What happened?" she gasped, clutching Jenna's arm. "They knew," Jenna said, eyes wide. "They knew everything. The HR rep said they received a file, photos, medical reports, screenshots of tweets, even audio." She turned to me. "You!" she hissed. I tilted my head. "Funny how the truth always finds its way out, huh?" She lunged, again, like instinct. But this time, I didn't step back. I didn't need to. Mum pulled her off me before she got close, shouting, "Stop it! Just stop! This isn't helping!" Oh, now it wasn't helping. For years my pain had been shrugged off. My tears were drama. My bruises were exaggeration. But the second Jenna's dream cracked, suddenly things were serious. I went back to my room, locked the door, and sat on my bed, not crying, not scared, just calm, because the first domino had fallen. And I knew exactly how the rest would go. That night, Mom cried. Not because her daughter assaulted someone. Not because she finally saw what Jenna had done. She cried because someone told. "She was just trying to get her life together," she said between sobs, pacing the kitchen. "She's not a bad person. Why would someone do this to her?" That question hung in the air like smoke from a fire she'd ignored too long. I heard her whisper to Dad, "It'll ruin her future." And he, finally speaking, muttered back, "We need to find a way to clean this up." Not once did anyone say the words I'd been waiting to hear, "We're sorry." The next day, it got worse. Jenna received a second email. She wasn't just rejected, she was blacklisted from future opportunities at that company. Her professor, Ms. Carmichael, had also been contacted. The lies on Jenna's resume exposed. And HR had forwarded the screenshots of her Twitter rants from 2 years ago. She couldn't spin it, couldn't charm her way out. She had been caught as herself. Meanwhile, I kept moving. I emailed every record I had of Mom's loans and misused transfers to a legal aid non-profit. They responded within a day. Family theft, the caseworker wrote, is still theft, and what you've described also falls under financial abuse. They offered to take my case, free of charge. I sat at the edge of my bed and reread the message 3 times. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't even realized I was starving for. Validation, not sympathy, not pity, just someone looking at the facts and saying, "You're not crazy, this is real, and it's wrong." I didn't say a word to anyone in the house that week. I went to work, came home, ate quietly, slept with my door locked until Friday. That's when I printed the paperwork, the house deed, the trust letter from Grandpa, and the formal eviction notice. I left them in a sealed envelope on the kitchen counter with a yellow sticky note that read, "You have 30 days." That night I went to bed early. No words, no warnings. The explosion came around midnight. "What the hell is this?" Mom screamed. My door flew open before I could react. Jenna stood there holding the letter like it had bitten her. "You're kicking us out?" she spat. "After everything we've done for you?" I didn't stand. I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, "I'm enforcing boundaries." "You can't do this," Mom added, her voice trembling for the first time in years. I stood up slowly, clutching my side. I just did. They always thought they could take everything from me and I'd still stay quiet, that I'd still play the part of the grateful daughter, the forgettable one, the easy target. But the thing about easy targets, we eventually learn to shoot back, and when we do, we don't miss. The next morning, the kitchen was dead quiet. No hum of the coffee maker, no clatter of cereal bowls, no morning tension pretending to be routine, just silence. I sat at the small table in the sunroom, sipping tea like I had nowhere else to be. The eviction letter still sat on the counter, crumpled now, fingerprints smeared across it like panic. But it was still there, and so was I. They didn't speak to me for 2 full days. No screaming, no accusations, just silence soaked in disbelief. I knew the phases. First came shock, then denial, then the scrambling. On day 3, Mom cornered me in the hallway. "You really think you're going to kick your entire family out?" she asked. Her voice tried to sound reasonable, controlled, but her eyes were shaking. I didn't answer right away, just looked at her. She couldn't hold the stare. "You're doing this for what? Revenge? Because Jenna lost a job interview?" I blinked. "No," I said calmly. "Because I've finally realized I don't owe you my survival. You're being ungrateful." Ungrateful, that word, after everything. I just walked away. Later that evening, Jenna stormed into my room without knocking. She was red-faced, pacing like a wild animal caught in a trap. "You're ruining everything for me," she snapped. "You're obsessed with being the victim, Ray. You forgot how to be a sister." I stood up slowly, the bandage around my ribs tight beneath my shirt. "Being your sister has meant bruises, silence, and pretending you're normal when you're not," I said. "I didn't forget how to be one. I just stopped volunteering to be abused for it." That hit her, but not in the way you'd expect. Not remorse, not shame. She picked up a coffee mug from my desk and threw it against the wall. It shattered inches from my face. I didn't flinch. I picked up my phone and I said one word. "Police." She backed away like I'd pulled a weapon. "You wouldn't," but she knew I would. This wasn't about the mug or even the interview. It wasn't about the house or the bruises. It was about years. Years of being dismissed, blamed, erased. This wasn't a fight. It was a funeral. For the version of me they thought would never stand up. When the cops came, Jenna tried to lock herself in the bathroom. Mum cried. Dad didn't say anything, just stared at the floor. They weren't arrested. Yet. But the report was filed. The history was noted. The threats, the injury, the previous medical visit, everything documented. And when Mum begged to make it disappear, she didn't even say the words. Not "I'm sorry," not "I didn't know," just "this will destroy her future." And I said, she should have thought about her future the day I couldn't breathe. The officer gave them 48 hours, a legal extension, grace period they called it. But it wasn't grace, it was the countdown. In the hours that followed, I started prepping. I boxed up my artwork, cleared out the shelves, opened the windows. The air already felt different. Jenna stomped through the halls, slamming doors. Mom sobbed loudly, hoping I'd feel guilt. Dad avoided eye contact like it could break him in half. But I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. 2 days later, right on deadline, they left. No goodbye. Jenna had 2 garbage bags and a duffel. She wore sunglasses indoors, like shame had become too bright to bear. Mum followed, crying, screaming. "You'll regret this! You think the world owes you something!" Dad walked behind them, slower. He paused in the doorway, looked at me. He opened his mouth like he might say something, but in the end, he didn't. He turned and walked away, and just like that, they were gone. I stood in the hallway alone. No slamming doors, no sarcastic jabs, no one pretending I was the problem just so they didn't have to face their own. Just silence. But not the suffocating kind. This time it felt like breath. That weekend, I started renovations. I painted over the thumbtack holes in the hallway, pulled up the stained carpet from the stairs, replaced the kitchen light fixture Jenna had cracked 3 years ago during a tantrum. Then I moved on to her old bedroom. I took down the posters, the fake certificates, the mirror she'd used to rehearse lying to herself, and I turned that room into something it was never meant to be, mine, an art studio. Sunlight hit the far wall just right by noon. I painted until my hands cramped, until it didn't hurt to be here anymore. A few days later, I opened an email I'd left sitting in my inbox for months. A deferred full-ride scholarship offer from the university I had once given up because Mum said, family comes first. They were still holding it. They still wanted me. So I said yes, not out of spite, out of freedom. I didn't rebuild a life out of revenge. I rebuilt one because no one else was going to give it to me. And once you've known what it feels like to be forgotten by everyone, you learn to never forget yourself again. The house stayed quiet for days, no doors slamming, no yelling through walls, no footsteps stomping down the hall at 2 a.m, just light wind coming through the windows and the hum of a life I was finally allowed to live. I didn't even realize how loud they'd made everything until they were gone. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. I kept the blinds open. The light hit different now. I painted every room, not just the walls, but the air. Ray lived here now, not the version they raised, but the version I chose. I cleared out every memory that tried to convince me I was small, unworthy, replaceable. And in the farthest room, the one Jenna used to claim as her throne, I made my studio. I filled it with canvases, colour, music, breath. I painted until my hands cramped, until I forgot how it felt to be invisible. A week later, I pulled up the scholarship email again. I'd left it sitting there for months. I almost didn't open it, thinking maybe they'd forgotten. But they hadn't. They were still offering me a full ride, still believed in the version of me I was never allowed to become under that roof. So I wrote them back. Thank you for waiting. I'm ready now. I started classes in the fall. Different city, different energy. People who didn't ask where I came from, only what I wanted to build. My art started gaining traction online. I got freelance work from companies Jenna once begged to interview with. Funny how that works. My professors didn't just teach me, they championed me. They saw me, like really saw me. And when I walked into those classrooms, I wasn't carrying guilt or shame or apologies, just a backpack and a second chance. One afternoon I got a message on LinkedIn. Anonymous profile. Did you really ruin your sister's life just to get into school? I stared at it for a minute. Not angry, not triggered, just tired. So I wrote back, no, I rebuilt mine. She just got caught in the debris of what she destroyed. Then I blocked it. The last I heard, Jenna was couch hopping between friends, 2 cities over. Couldn't keep a job for more than a few weeks. Word gets around. Especially in industries where your reputation walks in the door before you do. My parents moved in with my Aunt Lynn. Turns out she doesn't tolerate manipulation, and according to family gossip, she sees right through Mum. Every holiday I spent with people who actually asked how I was doing, friends who hugged me without agenda, professors who invited me to dinners not because they felt sorry, but because they were proud. And on my second graduation day, I didn't invite my family. I wore Grandma's necklace, the one Jenna once stole. I curled my hair the way she taught me as a kid. And when they called my name, I stepped onto that stage and whispered under my breath, "This one's for every time I was told to stay quiet." The applause wasn't thunderous. It didn't have to be. Because this time, I was the one holding the pen. And the ending? It was finally mine. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one, the invisible one, the one told to stay quiet, so someone else's comfort came first, I want you to comment, "Still here, still standing, because you are." And I see you. Let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story reaches. And if Ray's story reminded you of your own, share it. You never know who you'll help feel less alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We've got more stories, real, raw, and ours, on the way.